Hey guys, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In this video, we're going to be once again discussing Sirius Black, Albus Dumbledore, and Azkaban Prison. In one of my last videos, I discussed Sirius Black's imprisonment, and why I felt that he was never properly exonerated for his alleged crimes which were of course committed by Peter Pettigrew. In 1981, shortly after Voldemort had just been defeated, Black tracked Pettigrew down and found him in a small muggle town. It was in this town that Pettigrew murdered 12 muggles, using a dark and powerful blasting curse, simultaneously destroying hundreds of feet of sewer system and leaving a 40-foot crater in the ground. After this happened, Pettigrew cut off part of his right index finger and escaped into the sewers in his animagus form, a rat. This is how Sirius Black was framed for Pettigrew's crimes. However, more specifically, I addressed why I thought it was that Sirius was kept in Azkaban for such a long time, 12 years. Sirius was a member of the Order of the Phoenix, and Dumbledore was its leader. Surely Dumbledore, one of the wisest wizards of all time and a legitimacy master, could have figured out Sirius's innocence. Unless, of course, he didn't want to. In this video, I'm going to be exploring the possibility that Dumbledore knew of Sirius's innocence all along, but allowed Sirius to rot in prison. It's a bit of a morbid theory, but I think that it has some merit, and honestly may have been possible. After Sirius was sentenced to his crimes, the whole wizarding world turned on him. He was immediately featured on the front cover of the Daily Prophet, and the whole wizarding world was exposed to Sirius Black, mass murderer. However, I feel like Sirius got no slack when it came to his sentencing, particularly as up until that point in time, he had lived a fairly normal life. Sirius began attending Hogwarts in the year 1971, along with fellow marauders Peter Pettigrew, James Potter, and Remus Lupin. He was a good student, though a bit of a troublemaker, and was sorted into Gryffindor House when he started at the school. After graduating, he joined the Order of the Phoenix, which was founded by Albus Dumbledore, and helped with the opposition against Lord Voldemort and the Death Eaters. So my question is, how could everyone truly believe that Sirius was a murderer? He had spent a considerable amount of time with his fellow Order members, and during his time at Hogwarts, surely would have made an impression on some of his professors. So why did everyone suddenly believe that he had the capacity to murder 12 muggles and his lifelong friend? Unfortunately, when Sirius was initially caught for his alleged crimes, he sort of sealed his own fate, when instead of pleading his innocence, his first reaction was to burst out laughing. With the pile of dead muggles and the index finger of his friend in front of him, Sirius should have taken his situation very seriously. But, in times of extreme stress, it's hard to predict how one will react. Unable to process everything that had just happened, Sirius had a mental breakdown. The Potters were dead, he had just witnessed the murder of 12 muggles, his childhood friend, Pettigrew, had changed allegiance, and from that point onward he would have to live, knowing the recommendation that he'd made to the Potters to make Pettigrew secret keeper. Sirius was possibly the main reason that the Potters had died, and he couldn't process everything that had just happened. Sirius was of course the initial choice for the Potters secret keeper, a witch or wizard designated to hide a secret, secured by the Fidelius charm, which conceals the secret inside of the secret keeper's soul. However, Pettigrew was later chosen as secret keeper in his place, as Sirius felt that he would have been a more likely target for Voldemort. Lily and James only made you secret keeper because I suggested it. I thought it was the perfect plan. Voldemort would be sure to come after me. You'd never dream they'd use a weak, talentless thing like you. It must have been the finest moment of your miserable life, telling Voldemort you could hand him the Potters. However, this was a fatal error on Sirius's part, as Pettigrew, after being made secret keeper, showed his true colours. Because Sirius and the Potters had never revealed to anyone else the change in secret keeper, from the outside it honestly looked as though Sirius had first given up the Potters' location to Voldemort, then murdered a bunch of muggles, then killed Pettigrew. Things didn't look good for Sirius, and when Fudge showed up to the scene of the crime and witnessed Sirius laughing, he looked like a crazed, murderous lunatic that was truly befitting of the crimes that had just been committed. His laughter rid him of whatever shred of innocence he may have otherwise had, and he was sent to Azkaban without a trial. This is unheard of, particularly because Death Eaters, who'd committed equally horrible crimes, even got a trial. Given that Sirius was, in the eyes of Fudge, unequivocally and indisputably guilty for his crimes, and the fact that he was the last known secret keeper, it's no surprise that he went to Azkaban for 12 years. However, what I always found interesting was that Dumbledore didn't step up and defend Sirius. Sure, Dumbledore didn't know about the change in Secret Keeper, but he did know Sirius, and if there's one thing that Dumbledore exhibits well in this series, it's his ability to read people and read situations. I find it hard to believe that Albus Dumbledore was truly convinced that Sirius was guilty. Not only that, but Dumbledore possesses the means to figure out whether he's innocent or not. Dumbledore is portrayed in the books and films as being a skilled legilimens, which means that he's essentially able to read people's minds. He does this first with Kreacher in the Order of the Phoenix. "And Kreacher told you all this and laughed?" he croaked. "He did not wish to tell me," said Dumbledore, "but I am a sufficiently accomplished legilimens myself to know when I'm being lied to, and I persuaded him to tell me the full story before I left for the Department of Mysteries." Dumbledore was also the chief warlock of the Wizengamot, which gave him access to Azkaban inmates. With this access, we know that he also used legilimency on Morfin Gaunt in the past. Yes, but it took a great deal of skilled legilimency to coax it out of him. So my question is, couldn't he have easily just gone to Azkaban and found out the truth? Dumbledore's word was enough to have Snape's name cleared, so surely if he had found out the truth, he could have done something for Sirius. Didn't he owe that to him? I think that the potential morbid reality of this situation is that Dumbledore knew that Sirius was innocent all along, but allowed him to be imprisoned in Azkaban because he felt that his imprisonment would be better for the wizarding world as a whole. Here's why. Sirius Black was Harry's godfather, and being so close to the Potters would have likely taken young Harry under his wing after the death of his parents. If he were given a trial, I think that it's highly likely that Sirius would have claimed guardianship over Harry. I also think that it's particularly interesting that Sirius never got a trial at all, particularly as other Death Eaters did. It seems almost too convenient that he never got a chance to speak his case, as though one of his allies had persuaded the Ministry that he was sure of Black's guilt. Dumbledore. But Dumbledore never wanted Sirius to rot in Azkaban for no reason. He had a purpose, and this purpose came down to baby Harry and what Harry would need to achieve over the course of his lifetime. First of all, if Sirius had taken guardianship of Harry, he would have never lived with the Dursleys, and though they were awful to Harry, it may have actually kept him alive. Dumbledore explains this himself. While you can still call home the place where your mother's blood dwells, there you cannot be touched or harmed by Voldemort. He shed her blood, but it lives on in you and her sister. Her blood became your refuge. You need return there only once a year, but as long as you can still call it home, there he cannot hurt you. Your aunt knows this. I explained what I had done in the letter I left, with you, on her doorstep. She knows that allowing you house room may well have kept you alive for the past 15 years. And that's why Harry lived with the Dursleys, not because they provided him with a loving home and because they were the best fit for him, but because of his bloodline. Harry's Aunt Petunia was of course the sister of Harry's mother, Lily Potter. Because Petunia was Harry's blood relative, people held the belief that Lily's act of sacrificial protection would continue on and be transmitted through Petunia. So even though the Dursleys treated Harry like trash, in a tragic turn of events, it was actually still safer with the Dursleys than with anyone else. Sirius would have been a great father figure to Harry, and Harry would have enjoyed a wonderful upbringing, but he would have never been completely safe. Under the roof of the Dursleys, Harry had nothing to worry about, or more specifically, Dumbledore had nothing to worry about. Harry was the chosen one, and he needed to grow old so that the prophecy could come true, and he could overpower and defeat Lord Voldemort. Dumbledore, who lived his life pursuing the best interest of the wizarding world as a whole, rather than the best interest of individuals, raised Harry like a pig for slaughter, knowing that he would eventually die. In order for Harry to fulfill the prophecy and act as a martyr, Dumbledore felt that Harry would need to be raised under harsh conditions, and at the Dursley residence, harsh conditions Harry faced. Had Harry been raised by Sirius, he would have grown up as a famous, strong, confident, and independent young man, and perhaps not the man and martyr that the wizarding world would end up needing. Dumbledore manipulated Harry from day one, for the greater good, and Sirius Black would have only gotten in his way. Though Dumbledore didn't dislike Sirius, in Dumbledore's eyes his imprisonment was essential to secure the fate of the wizarding world. And that's it for this video. What do you guys think of this theory? Let me know down in the comments section below. Until next time, you're a wizard, Harry.